Social media has changed so much over the last 5 years, but especially the last 2 years. Where are we going? How in the world do we promote our podcasts? What are some ways that we can get our potential listeners from these apps over to our show? These are questions that we are constantly asking as content creators and podcasters. Today, we have Katie Brinkley to talk about ways that AI has reshaped and reimagined social media, how we as content creators can be more strategic with the types of content we're using to talk about our podcast, and where we see podcast content going in the near future. Please join me in welcoming Katie to the podcast. Welcome to Podcasting Unlocked, the show for purpose-driven podcasters. I'm Alicia Galati, founder of Galati Media, and I'm here to share actionable strategies to help you amplify your message and grow your audience. Hello, Katie. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. If you could start by telling everyone who you are, what you do, and a bit about your show.
Yeah, so my name is Katie Brinkley, and I actually have two shows. So I have an interview show, which is called Rocky Mountain Marketing, and then I have a solo podcast, which is called Marketing Trends Now. Marketing Trends Now is my newest show, and it's all about what is trending in marketing right now.
I love a dual show because I'm also I've had 5 shows over the course of my podcasting career. Right now I have 2, but at any point I'd always had 2, right? Like whether there was one that was kind of on the back burner. And then in all of 2024, I had my show, which was originally called Listeners to Leads, now called Podcasting Unlocked. And then I had my solo show because I found that I wanted a lot more SEO stuff
Yep.
and content, especially for YouTube and blogging and all of that. And so I did 10 minutes or less answering podcasting questions
Yep.
and then was able to batch them really easily. And it just made my life really simple. And so I'm curious how you mentioned that your main show that you've had longer is more interview style. And then you have the solo show. What are some other kind of differentiating things as you were navigating? I want to launch another podcast.
Yeah, well, when I started Rocky Mountain Marketing, it was for leads, and I started it during the pandemic. I didn't plan on having over 400 episodes and still having the show over 5 years later, but it's my favorite part of my business. Having a podcast, I was like, man, how am I going to be able to talk about social media every single week for 30 minutes? That's going to be really hard. And here now I have 2 shows. It evolved from being a lead show into a conversation show about digital marketing. After looking at the data, I saw that people really like my solo episodes, but I don't want to stop having these interviews. And then I was doing 2 episodes a week, and then it's like, why don't I just have 2 shows? And I can't stress enough that if you look at the data, which is exactly like what you and I were talking about before we pressed record here, you're like, I know, my audience, after 45 minutes, they're like done, they're done with the show. It's one of those things where if you look at the data, your audience will tell you what they want from you. And so it's like, well, what if I keep my interview show, have Rocky Mountain Marketing, and I just bring the best guests, talk about high-level marketing strategies that are working right now. And then I have Marketing Trends Now, which is just my solo show, and do that in 10 minutes or less every week. And it's my favorite part of my business.
Yes. I think that it's such a strategic way to approach creating content as well. I feel like so often we kind of get to a point, especially as business owners, where if we have an interview show, it's like, where am I going to fit in
Yeah.
to all of this? Because you do enjoy having the conversations, you do enjoy meeting new people. I have social anxiety, and so my podcast is a great way for me to network instead of having to go out and be among other people. And at that point, I think I was like 12 weeks ahead with just guests. And I was like,
Yeah.
what am I going to do? I'm too far batched ahead.
Yeah.
And so, launching that other podcast and doing it as like a test, right? I think that also giving ourselves grace to be like, let's test it out. Let's see if it works.
Mm-hmm.
Give it a year or 6 months, right? Whatever that might look like for you. More than 3, please and thank you.
Yeah.
Give it a good amount of time and then see how it feels. I'm now at the point where, because I launched another podcast, I stopped that one and I take those episodes that I released on the other solo podcast where I now have twice a week for this show, where Tuesdays are solo episodes, Thursdays are guest episodes, and then I alternate my Thursdays with the bonus episodes from the previous podcast and brand new content. And I'm
Mhm.
finding that that cadence works really well for me, and it gives me tons of content where I'm not like, what am I going to talk about this week? No, I literally
Yes.
have 2 episodes that I could talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that too, like, when you have a podcast, you never run out of things to share on social media, with your email list, through blogging. I mean, like, if you have a podcast, you're, like, set with content.
Yes, which is wonderful, and I love it. So let's talk social media because, whew, social media in the last 5 years, I wanna say, has changed so much, but then especially in the last 2 years with the rise of AI and AI content and all of that stuff. As podcasters and content creators, let's start with, is there still room for us as people who are maybe not creating AI videos or AI voices? We're using our own voice and our own kind of content to push more content into the system.
Yeah, it's crazy because I wrote a book all about social media. Now I gotta write another one. I knew it was a dangerous waters to head into writing a book on social media because it changes so fast, but then AI came into the picture and it really made things difficult, but yeah, AI is changing the game for all of us. And it's made social media a really interesting place to be in. It's made podcasting an interesting place to be in too. You said cloning voices, and that's one thing that we've done for one of our clients is she has a podcast and we've actually cloned her voice and we publish her podcast now in English and in Spanish. So I mean like it's amazing what you can do with AI. It's awesome, but it's also kind of sad because social media wasn't like some of my best I'm a bit of an introvert too, and that's why I love social media because I can be extroverted when I want to be and
Mhm.
through a screen. Some of my closest friends are online. It's great to have these digital friendships, and with AI now, it's made it so that it's hard to tell what's real and what's fake, and if we're just using robots to create content and having robots respond to content, that's taken away so much of the magic that social media was intended to be. And I mean, even Facebook, like it's created these, like, oh, hey, do you want AI to answer this for you? Do you want Meta AI to respond to this for you? And it's like, well, no, I wanted to, So I'm just wondering where it's going to be taking us. I was really excited about it about, well, just even 6 months ago, but the faster the AI is evolving and everything, the more I'm kind of like, "Man, where are things gonna be going, like, just 6 months from now?" I really am a little nervous because I love social media. It's a kind of a double-edged sword. I think it can be great. It can also be kind of negative, but I do think there's a lot of positives and great ways to build community on social media, and with all the bots and all the AI out there, I feel like a lot of that is being lost now.
Yeah, and I think that we're seeing it even more so in the business space than maybe the personal side, where it feels almost like it's kind of ruining it for all of us because I don't love to be on social media for my business. It's
Mhm.
more of like a schedule and post to have my team do it kind of thing. Just because of most of the people who are like sliding in my DMs, it's like, you don't really want to talk to me. You just want to try to sell me your coaching, right? Like, I'm good. This is
Yeah.
just to feed the machine of like,
Yep.
I'm relevant. And then I'm taking those conversations deeper with podcasts or summits or, any way that I possibly can to make it more intimate. But I also am part of the online bookish community, not book talk because I don't do TikTok. It's
Yeah.
just not really my thing, but Instagram, so Bookstagram, and a lot in the romance space. So if you can see my screen behind me, if you're watching this on Spotify or on YouTube, I have lots of books behind me. This is just the surface, tons and tons on my Kindle as well. And so in that space, we're seeing it start to creep in a little bit where maybe the captions are written by AI, but the content and the roundups of like, here are all the books with second chance romance, right? Like
Mhm.
they're not using AI to do that because AI most of the time will get that extremely wrong. It's like, don't promote books that you haven't really read. And that's just kind of like a basis of our community, at least certain sides of the community. Some might be coming in like, AI everything, but the majority of us do not. And because AI is impacting the authors in a really negative way, Facebook taking or Meta taking people's copyrighted books and then using them to create new books. We're seeing Spotify do that with music. We saw a lot of it with graphics. And so a lot of artists, their work getting knocked off and then AI reusing it. And so that side of the community is like very anti AI. And so I
Mhm.
don't see it as much. But on the business side, I feel like a lot of solopreneurs and entrepreneurs were like, awesome, here's a tool to make my life easier. Let it run a lot more for me.
Yeah.
So, how can we kind of maybe find a balance, or is there even a balance for us who are maybe doing it ourselves and just trying to navigate? Okay, how much content does this machine actually need?
Yeah.
And do we have to be using AI for all of it?
But yeah, this is honestly, this isn't where I thought our conversation was gonna go, but I think that with AI, the longer that we're not going to embrace it and learn to use it, the further left behind you're going to get. So learn all of it. I mean, and it sucks. Authors, graphic designers, video editors. I mean, heck, social media people, podcasters, everybody should be on lookout. And it's not to say that you should hate AI,
Right.
but you should learn to use it. Learn to use the tools because these tools, whether it's Gemini or whether it's ChatGPT, learn all of them. Learn Llama through Meta. I mean, learn all of them so that you can find ways to stay relevant, to stay ahead, because these tools they're going to surpass a lot of the stuff that we're already doing. And I mean, it's made my agency a lot more effective. It's made us a lot more efficient, and it's allowed us to scale faster because we're able to complete a lot more tasks for our clients now. So, I mean, it's a weird time to, I feel like all of a sudden, this probably is how a lot of blacksmiths were feeling when cars came out and were affordable. What's going to happen to the horses? Like, like people are still going to need horse. I feel like this is probably kind of like this very big shift of everything. I've got 2 daughters, they're 8 and 11. I just when they're in college, I can't even imagine what college is gonna be like for them because even high school with writing papers and stuff, like, are they gonna even need to write papers
Right.
anymore? We're at a really interesting time, and if you're not trying to learn all these things and embrace it, you're gonna get further and further left behind. So just find somebody that is 2 or 3 steps ahead of you and learn from them. Somebody that I learned from is Molly Mahoney. She's absolutely incredible. I'm a part of her coaching group. She's incredible, and she has weekly calls. I go to them and just learn from her. So, I mean, find someone that's a couple steps ahead of you and try to learn all the things because this stuff isn't going anywhere.
Yeah. And I think that's so important, right? Is almost finding a balance between, all right, I'm going to use it. I'm maybe going to use it ethically. And so I'm going to input my own content, like
Mhm.
my podcast transcript, and then have it repurpose it into a bunch of different ways, right? But when it comes to social media, yes, we're maybe using AI and we have our podcast. What are some ways that we can be like make the most of social media when we're talking about sharing our podcast and maybe actually getting people from the platforms over to listen to your podcast? Because I'm finding that that has gotten progressively more difficult as people use social media differently.
Yeah, well, I think that TikTok and AI have changed how we want information. We want it now. If you think about it, remember when the internet first came out and you wanted to find out what time the Super Bowl was being played. You went to Google and said, "What time is the Super Bowl on?" You would get all these different web pages like CBS and NBC and ESPN, and they would have a bunch of information on there, and it would say who was being played, where the game was being played, and then like the fourth paragraph down, it was said that the game was at 4:30.
Yeah.
Now, you just type that into Google, and at the very top, it gives you a brief summary of the game is being played at 4:30 p.m. at Gillette Stadium, and this is the 2 teams, you know?
Yeah.
It gives you that immediate answer. We're an answer first society. The attention span of 3 seconds, with TikTok, we're constantly scrolling. I just want to entertain me now. And give me my information now. We don't even want to do the research. And so everything has shifted into how fast can I get the information? How quickly can I move on to the next task? How fast can I be entertained? And if you're trying to promote a podcast, it's really made the buyer's journey much shorter. And so, how can you get people from like, hey, there's a new episode out. Okay, why should I care? You're going to have to get their attention and get them onto this new platform off of social media to a podcast platform very quickly. And so I think that we have to change how we're talking about our social media. And so I do have the 4-post strategy, which I wrote about in my book. And it's designed so that no matter where people are in the journey, they're ready to leave social media to go one step further with you. So it's the awareness to action strategy. And it takes people from awareness through elaboration, community building, and then an action post. So it's not actually saying like, hey, you leave social media to go listen to my podcast on every single post. It's trying to reach them however they best consume content and getting them to take action. Social media is different. And if you're constantly showing up and trying to sell in every single post, you're not going to get the reaction that you used to get, 5 years ago, and not even 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So social media is constantly evolving.
Yeah. What are you finding are some ways that are working right now? So you mentioned the like getting people's attention to, all right, take action. I have some examples of what's working for my hobby podcast, but I mean, that one's for funsies, right?
Yeah.
I always want to specify that what might be working on that one, because it is a topic that is very broad, it's romance novels, very broad, might not be as interesting to people who are like, all right, it's a podcast on podcasting. It's very meta, right? It's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
different. But one thing I'm finding is working really well is instead of just doing like new episode, who dis? I don't want to do that. And so trying to find different ways to still be engaging. So what I started doing was having the people that I would have on being really strategic at the forefront of the
Mhm.
content. I recently had someone on where she talked about sexual wellness and STIs and all of that stuff. She's got
Mhm.
a doctorate and did her thesis on herpes. So very interesting person,
Yep.
entrenched in the romance space. She reads a lot of historical romance, but is also a scientist. And so I had her on to talk about books that showcase really positive and good reflections of sexual wellness and
Mhm.
discussions around this. So kind of taking romance like to the next level.
Yeah.
And I asked her, so I was like, here are 10 books that showcase this really well that we talked about in this episode, was able to do a carousel for it, and then asked her to be a collaborator on that post. So then it went to her feed. And so people were able to see that. And one, the post got a ton of shares, it got a ton of views and a ton of likes. But additionally, a lot of people, when they were sharing it to their stories, were like, ooh, got this queued up, can't wait to listen. Tagging friends in the comments, ooh, you would really like this topic, right? Seeing that engagement and going through and liking all of the people who shared it, saying, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Responding to all of the comments, or actually engaging with the
Mhm.
people. That episode did a lot better than, say, one where I was like, hey, new episode. I'm in the middle of a million things. Goodbye.
Yeah. And I think that it's easy to fall into that trap, especially like there's great tools out there. It's super easy just to like run things through and be like, all right, checked the box, on to the next thing. But what you just explained is a great way of adding in the collaborator, adding in like the, hey, so and so, I think you'd find this valuable, like tagging the different people. Like these are the little things that are going to make your post get seen by more people. And if you're going to put we blocked out an hour for today's recording, right? And that doesn't include the pre-scheduling, that doesn't include the editing, that doesn't include the time to make the graphics, that doesn't like, let's just say that this podcast takes you 5 hours of production time. Like, let's get the most bang for your buck out of this.
Yeah.
Like, let's make sure it gets seen. Like, because if you're only going to just check a box afterwards, like, what's the point? Like, it's not worth to have the podcast. Let's make this worth it so that it gets seen by the most people possible. And just by doing like, hey, let's go ahead and add that person as a collaborator.
Right.
That probably took me longer to say than it
Yes.
probably would take you to do, right?
Yes, so true. So that's what I'm finding is working really well. And I've started to think about, okay, how can I integrate those same strategies with the more business podcast? So saying, hey, what are some things that we can do? Creating a carousel that has that person's face on it. Here are 3 tips to XYZ. And then going through that. So that way it's savable content and then people can keep coming back to it. But what are some things, maybe some additional things that maybe I'm not even thinking about or our audience isn't thinking about
Yeah.
that we can do as well?
Well, you're on the right track for sure. So the awareness to action strategy is you're kind of doing step 2 of the awareness to action strategies. The awareness post is typically making people problem aware. So let's just say you're going to promote this podcast with me to your audience. The awareness post, we'll just say for Instagram, would be maybe making a reel. How often are you actually promoting your podcast? Do you make a bold statement or maybe you say a strong hook for it? Like, I bet 20% of you don't even promote your podcast and you have some good audio or something like that. Like you're doing a reel, just making it something so that more people get seen. You're making people problem aware of, hey, you're not even promoting your podcast the right way. So that's your very first post. You're not even talking about this podcast episode. You're just making people, again, problem aware. The next post is going to be the elaboration post, your carousel that you just explained so eloquently, giving the tips, talking about how you can solve it, adding me in as a collaborator and saying like, this is how you can do it the right way. And promote your podcast the right way and giving those clear examples. The third post would be a community post and say, hey, this is how I changed. Like, these are the results I saw once I started ta adding in collaborators for my Instagram posts. Here's a picture of what my metrics were without a collaborator, and here it is with a collaborator. And you can just maybe it's just an image
Yeah.
of the data side by side, and you're sharing that, and that's the stuff people are gonna resonate with and say like, "Yeah, look at that. She's done it. She's actually doing the work. I can trust her." So now, if you think about it, we've positioned you as the thought leader. We have now shown them that, hey, they can know, like, and trust you because you've done what they look to do because you walk the walk, you can talk the talk. And now for the final post, hey, by the way, I sit down with Katie Brinkley in this week's podcast episode. You can share a screenshot of us. Maybe now we're using an Opus clip or something. I don't know, from the podcast episode, whatever it is. And you can share something saying like, I sit down with Katie Brinkley. We talk all about how you can promote your podcast the right way on this week's episode so that you can get more reach, more engagement, and more downloads. Comment podcast below and I'll send you the link.
Do we have to do all of them for every single episode, right? Because I can see people's minds like, okay, that's 4 posts for every episode. I have a weekly show. Do I have capacity for that? Is there a way not to half step it because we still have to take people through that journey, right? Maybe we have themes for the month. So, all right, this month we're talking about social media and we have one the first week we're talking about, all right, here's the problem that you're probably struggling with. And then the second week we're like, here are some tips. Here are 3 posts that are tips. We talk about these on episodes that are coming out this month. And then we're kind of moving them through.
Yeah.
Here are some results that I'm seeing. And then at the end, here's a playlist of all of our episodes that we talked about this month, right? To kind of condense it or make it easier for people to be able to still bring their audience through it without having to do 4 posts every single week for every single episode.
Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about the strategy is you can make it work for what works for you in your posting cadence. I post around, this summer I've been taking a major break, but I mean, I post typically around 3 times a week and I still just do this posting cadence. You can make it work with whatever works for you. You can do it once a week. This is just kind of a great guideline to how everyone consumes content differently. If you notice, we did a reel, we did a carousel, we did a single image. We tried to check all the boxes for how Instagram wanted us to create content so that it's not all reels, it's not all carousels, it's not all single images.
Yeah.
We're trying to check the boxes that the platform wants. We're trying to check the boxes for how everyone consumes content. It's a different way of making content so that everyone's seeing the content the way that they best see it.
Yeah. I'm thinking too, for my carousel posts at the last screen, I have a question, right, that I'll ask like,
Mhm.
what is your favorite whatever? Or what is one tip that is working really well for you right now? And then at the bottom, it'll say, tune into the full episode to learn more.
Mhm.
And it'll have the cover art there. So
Yeah.
then people know, hey, this isn't just a roundup post, or this isn't just a tip. This is actually part of a podcast. Cool. I'm going to slate that for later, or I'm going to go subscribe to the channel.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that that is working well in encompassing the second step and a bit of that fourth step into one for me.
Yeah. And it's great to always have a call to action on that last slide, ask a question, start with the hook and end with the CTA.
Right.
Always.
All right. We've got lots of tips and ideas. And okay, we can do this 4-post strategy, buy your book. But if we're like, okay, what is one thing I can do different next week to maybe be more social on social or to promote my podcast better? What is one thing that we can do?
Well, one thing to be more social on social, so just for all intensive purposes, I know we talked AI, I know we talked being more strategic with our podcasts and everything on today's episode, but I get social media, like I said earlier, it can be a double-edged sword. And if you're kind of feeling like on social media, it's like, ugh, it just feels draining to me to create anything. I get it, and sometimes the best strategy for social media is to engage and not to create content. It's to find content that you can engage with. And so, whether it's finding a Facebook group where you can go in and just be a positive person to engage in the comment section. You never know. Like, hey, I've gotten clients out of just saying, like, hey, actually, you can do X, Y, and Z. And I'm not saying to go in there and be like, hey, DM me for a sales call. Like, don't be gross. But you can just go in there and be helpful. You'll get followers. And if you have content, they're going to find your podcast. They're going to find your social accounts and they're going to come on in and then they're going to want to be a part of your world. So just go in and be social on social media, engage. And if you're like, I don't know who to engage with, you mean like my followers? Find your ideal clients. Like, okay, so I want more entrepreneurs to listen to my podcast. Okay, well, what type of entrepreneurs? Well, I want more realtors in Denver to listen to my podcast. Okay, well, then just search on Instagram, Denver Realtor. It makes it really easy to find
Yeah.
those people.
Yeah, I love that. And that's something that we can set a timer for 10 minutes, 15
Yeah.
minutes during our lunch break, right? Just we're going to be scrolling anyway, most
Yeah.
likely. Like,
Yep.
let's be strategic with it, especially. And I love that you said that, especially if we're feeling like I can't create more content. I have nothing else to give right now,
Yeah.
especially in the summertime. It can be really difficult.
Mm.
But even when this goes live, it's back to school time for us parents. Anything that we can do to alleviate some of that stress and engaging as a human being, I think is such a great and underutilized strategy. So thank you so much, Katie, for giving us some great strategic tips and tricks. And hopefully people can take this and really make a difference with their show. Where can people find you, listen to your podcasts, get to know you, buy your book, etc.?
Yeah, you can check me out at katiebrinkley.com. Connect with me on whatever social media platform you prefer from there. You can also buy the book there. You can find the podcasts there. So, yeah, head to katiebrinkley.com.
Awesome. And we'll make sure that we have that linked in the show notes for anyone who's doing other things or driving or whatever. We've got you. Links are in the show notes and the YouTube description. All right, Katie, thank you so much for being on.